What's up, HAX Nation? The voice you are hearing is not Drew's still. It is Austen Dalquist, the fill-in Frank, as part in the interruption the famous sports podcast likes to talk about. And congrats to Drew and Sandy, by the way. They just had their third kid, Catherine Frances Hunter, third girl. So excited for them. And yeah, I get the honor to host again today, and the absolute honor and privilege to host my friend Ashley Jones. And so Ashley, you have an amazing story. We'll dive into it. You're a very accomplished collegiate distance runner. You're a woman of faith. You've lived quite the life. You're also badass, as your as your license plate says, which we'll would love to dive into that as well. But we are here, Studio Sunshine Canyon. Thank you, Lawrence, for hosting us here again, the brand new studio at the top of Sunshine Canyon. But Ashley, thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've never had badass in an intro.
Let's go. Heck
That's
yeah.
a new one.
Well,
Thank you, Austen.
You are badass for sure. And yeah, I think for those that don't know you, or maybe want to know a little more about you, would you just maybe be able to start with kind of your general background, where you're from, and kind of where you're at right now life-wise, and then we could also go into the running as well.
Yeah, great. So I was born in Southern California. I spent 11 years of my life there, growing up with my family of 6, large family, and we spent time just very active as a family growing up. I played soccer since I could walk. I also skied, like super athletic family in general, with 2 brothers and a twin sister. And then at 11, I moved to Colorado, and that was middle school time. And it was just an awesome time of my life with my family, moving from California to Colorado, and the outdoors activities just took on a whole new level being here in Colorado. It's definitely home for us now, and I couldn't really imagine my life not being in Colorado. It's been such a gift for so many reasons. And I found running in my life later in high school. We can get into that a little bit more too, but found running later and committed to a small school in North Carolina, High Point University, and absolutely loved my time there. I grew a lot, and then I transferred to the University of Tennessee my senior year of college and finished out my undergrad at the University of Tennessee. I did a master's program also at the University of Tennessee. I fast-tracked a 2-year master's program to be done in 9 months, and then did one more transfer to the University of Colorado Boulder, and that's why I'm here back in Colorado, and loved my time at Colorado as well. It was definitely a trying year, but I'm grateful for the fact that I got 6 years in the NCAA, and that's with COVID. I was the last COVID class, and a couple redshirt seasons because of injury, but collegiate track and cross country for 6 years, and got my undergrad in kinesiology and biomechanics, a master's in sports psych, and a master's in organizational leadership. Wow. So thank you to the NCAA for allowing me the space, and I love learning too. So it was just an awesome adventure all around.
That's cool. Yeah. How many degrees total do you have?
Yeah, I have 3.
3, okay. 3.
Let's go. 3 degrees, yeah.
Heck yeah, that's sweet. And so you, in your journey, you had 2 pretty profound things happen to you when you were 14, I believe, correct? Would you be able to dive into those a little bit, kind of how those transpired and kind of how it's affected you to this day?
Yeah, so those 2 events totally changed the trajectory of my life. At 14, which was the end of my 8th grade year in middle school, going into my freshman year of high school, I experienced the loss of my father. He passed away very suddenly to a sudden heart attack. And when I talk about like growing up in California and the experiences that my family had, there was a lot of time together, and my family is really close. And so that loss was extremely hard, to say the least, and then also really extremely hard to try to conceptualize what that meant as a 14-year-old.
Totally.
And you go from him dropping you off at school that morning to never seeing him again and never getting a proper goodbye. Wow. And so the process of grief in and of itself is a journey to walk, and continuously is a journey to walk the rest of your life, I believe, because it comes in waves. And so we were experiencing as a family the grief of the loss of my father. So my father, but then also my mom's husband and a dear friend to many people. And our lives changed completely because our family dynamics were different and support looked different. And we were just trying to cope with a lot of emotions. And so learned a lot about grief at a young age, and a lot about grief from someone so close to me at a young age. And then it was only a short time after that, it was 3 months to almost the day, when my family was up in the mountains of Colorado, and I was involved in an ATV accident where I was not driving. I was sitting shotgun in the ATV, and unfortunately the driver of this ATV was going too fast. He hit a turn on a mountain road, and the wheels kind of spun out, and it was like muddy from the rain the night before, and the vehicle flipped and crushed the right side of the vehicle, which included me and my right arm. And so I was pinned underneath the ATV, and luckily I had family members there that were able to pull the ATV off of my arm. And I climbed out of the ATV and then kind of stood on the top of a mountain, wondering if that was going to be my final moments of my life. And I was losing a lot of blood, and I just knew that help was not coming for me. And so I started walking down this mountain, and I was walking with a family friend of ours. And I just remember, I recall this like in stories with people, as just feeling a lot of fear, and like looking down at my arm, it was just like a movie scene, right? And it was, my arm was broken in many places. My arm was completely lacerated in multiple places except for the main artery in my arm. And I would come to find that out when I went to the hospital that night. But as I'm walking down this mountain, I'm just full of fear. And I had grown up in the church, and I had grown up in a family that loved Jesus and taught me how to pray and brought me to VBS from a young age. So I learned about, the simplicity of the Bible, and then grew when I got older to learn more about my faith for my own life. And so out of fear, it was the response of, Lord, I need you. And so I prayed, even at the age of 14, that the Lord would come and intervene on my behalf, and that he would help save me in this moment. And so I was holding my arm, and my family friend was holding my arm, and she felt the bleeding stop upon that moment. And it doesn't make sense, other than a miracle from the Lord, that my life was saved in that moment, because I needed no blood transfusions in the hospital when I went to the hospital that night. It was a moment in time where he allowed me space and time for my life to be saved and to go get help further, because a couple minutes later, our family was able to find me and bring me to the front of the neighborhood, where I sat in an ambulance for 3 or 4 hours before a helicopter could come to me, because where we were in the valley, no medical facilities had the expertise that I needed. So I was just getting pumped with pain meds, and my arm was tourniqueted on the mountain. They untourniqueted and were just everything became blurry when I was in the ambulance. But I was held back to Children's Hospital that night, and the doctors tried to save my arm. But from what they told my mom, I would have had no use of my arm. And that's a long process in and of itself, when you have, from what I've learned, injury of a limb to that severity. It can be a long shot if your arm has any use. And so with the damage of my arm because of the accident, I would have, had no function, and the infection probably would have killed me. And so I became an amputee at 14, and just experiencing 2 life events to that severity at that young age. It's literally only by the grace of God that I'm here and joyous and able to continue to pursue the things that I love to pursue. because that in of itself, like reflecting back, seems like enough, for life to look very different, and it has. But I knew that after my accident happened, that it's kind of counterintuitive, but I knew that all of what I was facing was not for nothing. And I knew that there was purpose in and of it. Wow. Because I was still alive. And so I knew that my life still had something very much in store for it. And so that's when I started just like going for crazy things in life. And one of them being running. Yeah. And so that's a little bit of, what happened at that time.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. Totally cannot imagine the pain and the questioning, and what a miracle that you're alive, truly. And the loss of a parent is certainly profound. And you mentioned in that, and we can certainly want to dive into the faith piece that you mentioned there. Before all this happened, when you were 14, you said you grew up in a family that loved Jesus. Would you say your faith was like personal at that point? It was something that you were leaning into hard at that point, or was that more after the fact?
Yeah, I think it was a really pivotal time in my faith, because I was in 8th grade, which you're still young, but I believe that you can still conceptualize what faith is for yourself. And when we moved to Colorado, I was going to a private Christian school. And so they were teaching the scriptures, and they were teaching about prayer and worship. And I had given my life in baptism to Christ in 5th grade. And so it was a journey that I was very much growing in at that time, to understand it on my own instead of just having it be my parents' faith. That was something that I came alongside, but now it was my own. Yeah. And no doubt that I still had a lot to learn, and I still have a lot to learn, as we all do. But I do believe that that was a time where I understood that praying on that mountain, or praying before all of those events happened, praying after my father passed away, I knew who I was talking to. And I knew his voice, because I was starting to read for myself the scriptures. And that, I believe, is a huge factor for why I felt purpose in my life, is because I was reading the scriptures. And he calls us to him, and because of that, we have purpose. And so it was definitely a pivotal time in my faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no way to know this side of glory why things happen, and when the Lord decides to call somebody home. But that is such a mature response that you continue to have toward it. And when you talk about like faith kind of being that anchor, what do you feel like have been the biggest like refining points through that you've kind of had to, I guess, go through as you continue to get older?
Yeah, for sure. I got this like really funny question one time where I was telling my story, of those two things that happened when I was 14, and someone asked me, well, like, do you face any more hard things? And I was like, I totally understood where they were coming from in this question, but yes, I do still face hard things, because we still are breathing and living on the same planet where those hard things happened. And it's not like I have an hourglass of hard things that when it runs out, it's like, oh, you're good. The rest of your life will be easy. And so because of those circumstances, I know that if we are in tune with the fact that struggles aren't for nothing, and I am a firm believer that there's always purpose in pain. And so those events alone really helped me grow personally for the challenges ahead. And when I say challenges, like one of them that comes to mind is just merely the fact of adapting and living life daily as an amputee. It's a continual process that I face on the daily, and some days are harder than others, and some days it's a breeze and I don't think about it. But living with 2 arms for 14 years, and then now having lived many years, I just was celebrating the fact that my life was saved 10 years ago.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
so almost half and half, right, of 14 years with 2 arms and now 10 years with 1 arm is the constant like adaptation that I face. And there's been so much resilience that's come because of that. A lot of patience, because a lot of times when I'm trying something for the first time, it takes multiple tries before I can get it. And that's helped a lot in sport because I'm like expecting something to probably not happen the first time. And that's created, I believe, a grit inside of my, stomach to be able to push through hard things. And so one of them is adaptation. I think this past year more recently was a really trying time for my NCAA career. I faced some of the most injuries that I had faced in 1 year, from coming off of an incredible summer training here in Boulder, and was super excited because I felt so fit and so ready to attack the cross country season. I had just moved in the early summer from Tennessee, and I was just like, this is going to be great. We made the move to Boulder. It'll be this linear thing.
Yeah.
It never is, right?
Totally.
And I was trying to, play the system, but the system plays you sometimes. So I, upon some of our first workouts at CU this past fall, I tore my soleus, and it was just a really long process of recovery. I came back for the one race of cross country nationals, was my first race of the NCAA season, which was crazy in and of itself. I'm like, all right, we're jumping right in. So
NCAA cross is so nuts. There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. And I was like, okay, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. And we definitely did. Little did I know at that time that I was sick, and I was like experiencing a lot of just health problems over the winter that I was wrestling with and didn't get answers for a while. And so that was a huge trying time where I got used to the fact that I have physical pain, which is super taxing on my mind on days where it's worse. But then you have another thing that's a physical demand, and I just was completely depleted of energy. And so I got through that winter sickness and was gearing up for track season again, and I like partially tore my other calf. And so at that point, I was like, Lord, if this is the end of my NCAA career, then it's okay. Like, I feel at that point, what he taught me going through all of that is he had to bring me to a point where if running went away, it would be okay. And that was such a hard lesson to learn, because multiple years like before that, if that was the case, I don't know if I would have been okay with that. And even processing that now, being out of the collegiate space, I'm so grateful that he brought me to that point, because I feel like I now have lens for other things in life, which is really important. And I believe really important for all athletes to be able to understand that. And so, that was a huge trying time. I was able to still race after that partial tear, which was so cool and amazing, and finish out my collegiate career racing. And that was just like only a gift. So some different obstacles for sure, but they only didn't happen at 14. So
Bottom line, every run you do is a valuable data point, but only if you capture it. Stride is a small wearable sensor that clips to your shoe and gives you the complete picture of every workout. Running power, pace, form metrics, wind, environmental impact, all of it. It's how you find your optimal shoe for every run. It's how you pace your next race. It's how you come back from injuries smartly. And it's the kind of data you want to review after every run to ensure you are improving every day. Check it out at stride.com. When I'm out on a run, I'm thinking about more than just my race times. I'm thinking about who I'm running for, my family, and the people who count on me. That's why I want to talk to you about something simple but important, life insurance. If you've ever looked into it, you've probably seen those ads with unbelievably low prices. But here's the reality. Most people don't actually qualify for those rates. Even small things like your weight, Health history or family background can change what you'll pay. That's where lifequotes.com is different. They'll shop your profile across 50 top-rated insurance companies to find the best policy for you. Not some unrealistic teaser rate. You can get coverage anywhere from $5,000 to $30 million. And here's the part I like. No AI, no pressure to buy, just real salaried agents who are there to help, not push you into something. They're available from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. You can call them directly at 800-955-6618. That's 800-955-6618. Or just go to lifequotes.com, answer a few quick health questions, and get a quote right over the phone. If you've been putting this off, take a few minutes and get it done. Protect the long run with lifequotes.com.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's amazing. I can really say the same thing in my personal journey, breaking my sacrum at the beginning of 2020 and having a breathing disorder soon after that. I'm so thankful for it right now because I finally was able to surrender my running to the Lord and just give him the outcome. Where I thought of, I thought similar thoughts to you. Like, am I done with running? Is this the end of the story? And I personally still ended up still feeling called to it, but I think it just unlocked so much in my life when I finally surrendered it. Running and just everything else. And I really believe it unlocked the spirit in my life. And so it's amazing to hear that, people hear you going through that, those injuries, but then you say that you're super thankful for it. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you weren't able to run healthy your last year. You were in great shape, but it's super cool. I mean, the Bible is riddled with it in James especially, but just riddled with how perseverance is our greatest teacher. And in distance running as well, I feel like it relates so profoundly. Like, we have to work hard. We have to find our limits. We have to fail a bunch to succeed. Nobody in running or anywhere in life has as you mentioned earlier, the linear path. I wanted to just circle back to your father real quick before we go on. Do you have siblings also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a twin sister and two brothers, one younger and one older.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that time with your siblings and with your mom? Because as you mentioned, that left like a massive hole in the family, and I'm sure that I can't imagine you being that age, and you're about to go to high school, and there's a lot going on in life, and a lot of pressures, and so how was that with the family, and I guess kind of losing that father figure, and in a lot of ways like an anchor to the family?
I've learned with grief, especially when it affects a family unit, everyone processes grief differently, and everyone has a different response to grief. And so no doubt we all went through the same grief of our father, or for my mom, her husband, but we all had different responses to grief, because my younger brother was at a really young age where he was just trying to really understand what was going on. I say that I was trying to understand what was going on, but he was so young that he was trying to like understand what my mom was saying, what we were saying. And for him, that was the road that he was walking. And then for my sister and I've always thought that being a twin is such a gift. And because we've been so close for so long, and she's, especially after my accident, was literally my right hand for so many reasons. But we walked that road very closely together because we were sisters, because we are close in age. And yet even for us, we've processed grief differently. And when I had the accident, I was grieving two very different things. And so I think for the process of grief, there's time and space for everyone to be on their own road, even though you can support each other as a family. And it brought our family really close together. When you talk about suffering and you talk about the lessons that are learned through suffering, I believe there's two roads of suffering. Like you can either let it break you apart as when you talk about a family unit, or you can allow it to bring you closer together. Same roads for individuals. Like it can allow you to draw, I believe, closer to the Lord, or it can draw you away because you're angered at the fact that this could happen to someone that you loved so much. And so instead of drawing closer to the Father because he is our hope and strength, you draw away from him because you're angry at the fact that he is a loving Father and would allow that to happen. Yet we live in a sinful world and things like that do happen. And he didn't want to see us hurting in the beginning. So that wasn't the design, right? And so circling back, it brought our family together. And for that, I'm very grateful because I can rely on my family. My mom's my best friend. I love her so much and she's the best. So
yeah. No, it's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I know you've mentioned before on previous podcasts, like the victim mentality and, how, sometimes we allow things that some people can allow things that happen to us become our whole identity, and how it can just restrict our way of living and make us live in fear and shame. And
for sure.
I think John Mark Comer, the author, he wrote in a book called Practicing the Way, and he just talked about how the best years of our lives are supposed to be when we're 60, 70, and 80. And he said, because life is like it's a lifetime of discipleship. It's you either allow the world to, as you said, take two different paths. You either become angry, selfish, curse at the world, curse at the sky, why are things like this? Or you allow the inevitable hardships that you're going to go through to make you more generous, kind, understanding. And he just referenced, he said, think about somebody that's 80 in your life. They're either the worst person you know or the best person you know.
Wow.
And I unfortunately have an example in my life where they are, they're not having a good time and they're treating people around them poorly. And then I have other examples of older people in my life that and have gone through crazy hard things, but are so wonderful. But often we just have to be, unfortunately, forged to the fire in this life, either by circumstance or, by other reasons, which we don't have to get into other spiritual aspects of that. But,
and when you say unfortunately too, experiencing hardship, sometimes I think that it's such a blessing to experience hard things. And I don't want to, even for the listeners that don't yet believe in Jesus, I think that it is something that can bring us closer to realizing the deeper meaning of things in life, because you're like, unfortunately, like when you experience those things, I've found for my life that my life has so much more meaning because of those things.
That's good.
And I found that my relationships have depth because of those things. I saw my father one day and I didn't see him the next. And so again, I'm not perfect and I'm not close to it, but I see the people in my life and I see the friendships that I have. And I know that life can change very quickly on a dime. And so for me, it's the responsibility that I have to foster good friendships and foster good relationships, because that is a gift that can be taken away. And so when we talk about unfortunate suffering, there's something that's in suffering that we need to learn that's outside of comfort. Totally. You can't learn it in comfort. And so with the things that I've gone through, or literally merely just training and competing and experiencing injuries, experiencing hard races, experiencing great races, I would attest that even people that don't see yet how the Lord is working through the suffering see that it makes them more resilient, more gritty, more appreciative, more grateful.
Yeah,
and that is supposed to be how it works, because we are supposed to be drawn to the fact that we are created for more than just a comfortable life.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, that's amazing. Totally relate to that. And I think the last part there that I meditate on is that we're also stubborn prideful humans. And we sometimes think that we can do it on our own. And I believe, that God allows us to do that. And we'll often drive ourselves off a cliff because we're doing it for ourselves or for the wrong reason. And so, we, like you said, certainly go through those things, but need those things in our lives to make us recognize so many things. So that's amazing. I think going on the running path a little bit, you started running after your accident, right? How did that come into play? Because you said you were a soccer player, and then how did running come?
Yeah. Soccer was something that I grew up playing with my sister. I was even on a team with my brothers, like way back when.
Let's go.
But after my accident, I knew soccer, so I came back to soccer and worked in occupational therapy and physical therapy to really work on balance, just because when you're running and striking a ball and being knocked around and stuff like that with teammates and stuff, very easily you can lose your balance. And I was already like really unsteady on my feet after my accident. And so worked on that and felt comfortable to get back on the field. Was on the field for a season in high school, if I remember correctly, and then was trying out for a club team and tore my ACL and meniscus. And so I was literally just off of my pain meds from the accident. I had taken a year of the highest dose that my body could handle of oxycodone, which is just crazy to think that I was on that for a year.
Yeah, wow.
And was able to still function in life, was able to still get through freshman year. Thank you to my teachers, because they helped so much for me even to get through that year and not have to take a gap year or something. So I was finally coming off of oxycodone and tore my ACL and was in surgery. I tried to get on some pain meds after an ACL, and my body completely rejected the meds because I was on it for so long, and they're like, we're not doing this anymore. And so I just went on extra strength Tylenol after my ACL surgery.
Dang.
And I was getting back from that surgery back onto the field again, back in rehab and all that stuff. And then from that injury, I was just really wrestling with, okay, if I'm falling and I'm getting pushed around, and if I'm thinking about college and it's only going to get more aggressive with college soccer, I'm going to get thrown around and fall down more than I am in high school. And if I hurt my arm, I'm going to be down for the count, like my left arm. So that, amongst coming back from the ACL recovery, it was just a lot of wrestling of, okay, what's next? And so we were toying around with the idea of triathlon. Me and my mom, my prosthetist, who is the individual that builds prosthetics, he mentioned this triathlon camp. And so I was like, why not? So I went out, and he had built me I call it my workout arm, which is just the arm that allows me to bike. I did at the time. And so I tried to bike and swim for the first time with one arm, and I think it went pretty well because I was like, this is fun enough to maybe continue in this. So I stopped playing soccer. I did triathlon for a little bit. It was a year and a half of triathlon, which was so fun. I actually competed in paratriathlon at that time and competed in Wisconsin, and then qualified for a race in LA for the paratriathlon national championships.
Cool.
And that was so fun, and found my love for running during that process. So I was running with our high school team. I had just mentioned it to the coach that I would love to be running with a group of people because I was swimming and biking by myself, and went out with the team, loved the team, really appreciated his coaching style. He was a family friend of my family's. So
cool.
He had been wanting me to come run for years, and he was finally like, yes. And so I came out and ran with them while I was triathlon training. And then he's like, just jump in a race, see what happens. And jumped in a race. It went decent and I fell more in love with it, and then just decided to do running after triathlon for some time.
Wow.
So I had my track season my junior year of high school, and then the cross country season of my senior year of high school, and then COVID hit. So I was just like, all right, is 2 seasons going to be enough to run in college? And I reached out to High Point and they gave me an offer, and that's kind of what started the road of running in the collegiate space.
Yeah, that's cool. Wow. Dang. So you graduated. Oh man, I'm sorry. You graduated the 2020.
I was
Dang,
the
you're
2020 graduating class.
Oh, have you seen those memes about the 2020 graduating class?
Oh, I bet I have.
It's like, and I'm not saying that you do this, but they'll be talking about something random and like, oh, do you know that, you know, the leaves change on this day? And then the person will say, well, did you know that I graduated when COVID hit? Like, man, that's hard. I can't imagine losing that senior track and just senior life, school season. Like, that's supposed to be like a magical time with prom, and, you know, you're saying goodbye to all your friends and kind of, enjoying your last bit of high school. And so, man, I can't imagine what that was like. What was that like?
I mean, it was kind of crazy. I had a graduation. My school figured out how to not have a graduation indoors, but outdoors. So we were on our football field all spread out, and we managed to have a graduation like late into the summer, I think. So they were just trying to figure out what was doable. And it wasn't only weird to have that be the graduation and you're like, oh, you didn't get a formal graduation, you didn't get a formal prom and stuff like that. What I thought was even more weird is the transition to college. It was so anticlimactic. It was like you moved into your dorm, you didn't really have interaction with people because everyone was wearing masks, everyone was social distancing. So there was no like an inaugural welcome to college, everyone that's a freshman mingle and meet each other and go to freshman orientation. I remember a lot of it was online. So it was either seeing people on a screen and just being like, awesome. Or just having things be very spread out. And it was like, okay, now classes start. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm in college. So,
man. Yeah, that is super interesting. It was weird being out of college and working and just living, especially in Boulder. Boulder was pretty locked down, but yeah, I can't imagine doing a huge life transition amidst all that. And so why did you said you reached out to High Point. Why did you reach out to them specifically?
I was looking at some schools on the East Coast, and I thought I really liked High Point as far as like the education side of things goes. My sister was also looking on the East Coast, and we didn't want to be too far from each other. And so High Point was on my list. And when I was looking at the track programs as well, it was just, I don't know, it all made sense at that time to reach out to them. And then when I connected with the coach, it just made sense to transition to High Point. Yeah.
Why the East Coast were you looking?
I think it was just like a switch up from being in Colorado. I wasn't considering schools in Colorado. One, it's just like so crazy how the Lord works, right? That I like ran at CU my last year because there's just no way that I could have committed to CU as a freshman, which is so cool because I grew so much, was able to have the opportunity to come into the NCAA and grow.
Yeah.
But I think it was just looking for a new switch up of being away from home, not that I needed to, but just wanted to get a little bit of a new environment. And I love the East Coast. We have family on the East Coast too. So it was just a new environment, I think.
Yeah. That's cool. That's something that I encourage young runners looking to run in college is to consider leaving their state or going to a different place, different culture. And not that there's anything wrong with staying in state or running if your hometown college, if you have the ability, but that was something that was profound in my journey.
For sure.
Leaving the comforts of everything. And so that's really cool. But you were there. So you were there for a couple of years.
Yep.
How many years?
I was there for 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And then you went to Tennessee. Why did you decide to transfer?
During my junior year, I was growing a lot as far as athletically. I just felt like I was really reaching a new height of understanding training, competing well, and really wanting more as far as structure of training and understanding of training and like competing at the next level. I just remember having moments too where I was in races and I'm like, I'm racing against these bigger schools, being a smaller school, and just inevitably smaller schools don't have as many resources as bigger schools. And so it was trying to figure that out, as well as trying to be super competitive with big fields of athletes. And so I didn't really consider transferring for a while. I had a friend who had come she originally was at Florida, then at Wake Forest, and had come to High Point for her last graduate year, and started talking to me about really like the bigger scale Division I. And I was like, that's crazy. I didn't even know there was a world out there that is Division I like that. And so it wasn't even, it just wasn't like oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, but is that a possibility? And so talking with her and just really putting my head down and trying to execute races and stuff, I really felt like that was the next step. I wanted more. I've always been someone that has wanted to see what possibilities are. And so as far as many factors, like I knew that I wasn't going to stay at High Point when I was going to leave and I was going to graduate. I knew I wasn't going to stay in the city of High Point. I knew it was only for a time in college. So I was kind of considering that too, like where could I actually see myself for a longer term and be at a place where I could build community and stuff. So many factors, but I think the biggest one was I was genuinely just wanting more on all aspects, academically, athletically, very much so. And when I considered that it might be a possibility as far as what my times look like, I was like, all right, let's do it. And so honestly, a huge leap of faith looking back on it now. I just kind of went for it at the time, but everything changed for me. I packed everything up in a couple weeks and moved to Tennessee and went from a really small Division I to one of the biggest SEC. And it was one of the best decisions I could have made for my collegiate career. So really grateful for the opportunity to go to Tennessee.
Yeah. Did you hop in the portal and people like hit you up and then you got to decide from there? Or how did that work? Okay.
Yeah, I went into the portal, and that was the first time I experienced the transfer portal, and had communication with some different schools, went on some visits, and then went to a visit at Tennessee, and just really felt like that was the place that I needed to be.
Cool.
And signed a letter of intent, and moved very quickly after that. That was the spring of my junior year is when I went into the portal. So I had kind of a season where I wasn't running, and that allowed me some space to figure out and travel to universities and stuff like that to figure out where I wanted to be.
Is that hard to transfer? Like leave a team and your teammates and your coaches and because you ended up doing it twice, I guess. The Tennessee one was a little more natural because you said you got a degree and you're going to get another degree. But was that a hard conversations to have or?
Really hard conversations for sure. Some went over really well and some went over really poorly.
Oh man.
And again, I felt like I was still young at that time. Now I had 3 more years after that in the NCAA, which is crazy. But yeah, it was definitely hard to communicate, hey, I think this university is great, but I'm ready for more. And it wasn't necessarily a dig on the university itself. It was just like, I do want to see the growth possibility here. Yeah. And for me, I felt like there was a ceiling where I was. And so that was my desire, is to go see if this ceiling can get expanded. And to leave my friends was probably the hardest conversations. To leave some teammates was definitely hard. And to leave community, I've talked about that as well, is I didn't realize the ramifications of leaving community that you've established for 3 years. However, I still have that community in my life, and that's really awesome. So it was definitely more of a natural transition to leave Tennessee to come to Colorado. My family's here. Carlson was here from Tennessee, and I thought that this would be a greater move for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so it made sense, but I was also leaving a lot of community at Tennessee. And so I think that was the biggest factor of it being hard, is leaving people and having to have that conversation and knowing that it won't be the same where you go. And it takes a while to build community. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
So it was harder going High Point to Tennessee, but not as hard going Tennessee, Colorado, you'd say?
No, I would say it was easier to go from High Point to Tennessee.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had really deep community even in 2 years at Tennessee.
Cool.
An incredible campus ministry there, mentors, just people that I loved really dearly. I have people at High Point that I also loved very dearly, but it was such an amazing 2 years at Tennessee that it was hard to leave.
Yeah.
But a lot of things changed at Tennessee. I mean, you watch the NCAA, but you also are in the pro space now. And so there's so much movement in the NCAA. So there was so many changes, even at my time at Tennessee, with changing of coaches, changing of team members, people leaving, entering the transfer portal. So even my second year at Tennessee was not like the first year. And that in and of itself was very different.
Yeah. Or why did you decide to go from Tennessee to CU?
I made that decision because, one, I had more eligibility and I was trying to figure out what the next step was. I was just considering what the dynamic of the team looked like at that time, and I was considering coming back home in general. I was toying around with the idea of staying in Tennessee because my sister is in Tennessee as well. But
Cool. Twin sister?
Yes,
Cool.
My twin sister. When my graduate degree was like ending, I was, again, when we think about things in a linear fashion, I thought like, okay, I'm growing at Tennessee. Could the next factor also be altitude? And so that was a consideration coming back to CU. And so I was just considering all those things when coming back to CU and making that jump back. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Where would you say, I guess, like your favorite memories from your NCAA experience, or not what are your favorite memories from your NCAA experience, would you say?
Yeah, there's so many, honestly. I reflect back on a lot of my senior year at Tennessee being some of my fondest memories. Because I feel like that was the old NCAA. I feel like the new NCAA is so much movement and not a lot of team camaraderie. That year I experienced a team camaraderie unlike any other year that I had had. And so I was living with my teammates. We were always hanging out. It was just so fun. Like, training was so hard, but we had so much fun doing it. And I think that's really what made the team successful at that time. So I think my senior year was awesome. Great moments there. I think my time at High Point, I had some great moments just like learning what the running scene looked like, honestly, and being in really cool races and totally being like, I have no idea what's going on, but jumping in for the fun of it and learning in that. And then my fifth year and my sixth year, I really enjoyed diving more into relationships on the team and or like for my personal life, to be able to be like, what does my life look like after this? And pouring into the church here in Boulder has been amazing for me. And then at Tennessee, just again, like committing to the campus ministry and the people that I love there were just like great moments of Chick-fil-A visits, or like,
Let's go.
Going to the Smoky Mountains was awesome when we had free time. And, running has a plethora of amazing moments, but I think the small moments are really great too.
Yeah. No, that's sweet. I would say the same, like just spending time with my teammates in college was just the best. It's just such a unique time. And yeah, I don't have regrets, but if I did, it would be to just spend more time with friends. And it's just, it'll never be the same. Similar to high school, but in college, you're like living with a lot of them and you're adults. And so it's a really cool thing. And yeah, I would encourage people to not take that for granted. Like
Yeah.
the racing's cool, and of course the experiences and being able to do all the things that the student athlete can do. But I completely agree. Just like really forging those lifelong friendships and enjoying that unique time. How does your faith play into how you, I guess just frame running? I know that's a little bit of a broad question, but how does your faith come into it, would you say?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but throughout my NCAA career, I wrestled with a lot of I'm more than a runner. And a lot of people say that. A lot of people say like, you're more than just what you do. And I would hear that over and over, and I'd wrestle a lot with that, especially early on. I just felt like there were so many moments when you talk about, I wish I'd spent more time with teammates. There were times where I just felt like I put my head down and just grinded. And I was like, okay, Ashley, you need to come up for air and figure out what further purpose this has in your life. And it took me 6 years to actually feel freedom in that aspect of my running, which was so cool. Again, when I talk about like the hardship of this past year, I believe I just had to come to a place where I was able to be like, if I step onto this track again, it's a gift. And that's exactly what happened. I came off of the winter this past year at CU, and I had conversations with my coach literally in tears, just being like, I think this might be the end. We keep experiencing injuries for reasons we don't know. I'm still trying to wrestle with this sickness, and is the possibility that we're going to step onto the track. I partially tore my calf 2 weeks before our race. We went to California. We were debating whether we were going to travel me, and we were like, let's go for it. And I was just so praying, like, Lord, just have your way here. And so we go to California. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to finish this race genuinely, because I was in like a decent amount of pain with my calf. We were still rehabbing it, and a 10K in spikes is probably not the best scenario for a calf injury. And so we weren't even doing the 5K. We were doing the 10K. And the night of the race, I remember writing in my journal, like, I woke up with such joy today because I get to race. And that night we taped up my calf, and I played some awesome Christian rap. I love my Christian rap. And I stepped onto that line, and I remember waving to my family in the stands, and it was so cool because the Lord allowed all my family to be, pretty much all of my family to be there, my boyfriend to be there, to experience this moment. And it wasn't even the last race of my NCAA career. Not all of my family was able to make it to that. It was this race because he knew that there was going to be a breakthrough at this race.
Come on.
And so I'm racing this 10K. I have no idea where my fitness is. I have no idea if I'm going to finish this race because of the calf. And there'd be some times where I feel like a tweak in my calf. I'd be like, oh no, like I don't know. Do I have another lap? Do I have another, like 2 laps? And 2 laps turned into 3 laps, and 3 laps turned into the entirety of the race.
Wow.
And I even remember having such joy in racing, which was so, it's not that I hadn't experienced joy in racing, but not to this degree. Like there was such a freedom that I had. I remember running, this is so not what you should do, but I remember running a lap, and Cal Poly, is it Cal Poly where the...
Azusa?
Yeah, Azusa, thank you. Azusa, everyone can come into the infield. Yeah. So you have people like yelling at you from different places on the track, and they're so close to you. You're like, please don't take another step because there's runners coming, you know? And so one of my teammates was on the infield and cheering me on. And I remember running this lap, and I put out my hand and gave him a high five.
Let's go.
During this 10K. And I was like, literally, that is only the Lord giving me that joy. And so that race, I stepped off the track, and it went far beyond what we were expecting. And also I was able to finish that race having no expectation that I was going to finish that race, and literally joking around with coach about how we have no idea what's going to happen. And there was just so much joy. And when we talked about this earlier, crossing that finish line, I was like, if my NCAA career is over now, I'm content.
Cool.
And so I feel like as you talk about faith, it was a constant like coming to him to be like, Lord, please show me more of you in this space, because it's such a demand of self in running. You're thinking about yourself 24/7. How's my sleep? Am I eating enough? Am I hydrating enough? When am I scheduling a PT appointment? Am I stretching enough? Like, when you're watching shows, you're probably doing things simultaneously. You're not even like fully relaxing. It's like you're watching a TV show and you're stretching.
Yeah.
You're like sitting on the couch and doing Normatex. It's like this constant process of evaluating how you're doing. And so it's such a thought about you, and you're wrestling with how does the Lord intervene into this space? And he so does. And he wants to, because he wants to work through everything, and he wants you to surrender everything to him. It's not just aspects of your life. And so I just think it was a moment, a chapter, a season of fully surrendering that and seeing really what he does in full surrender. So it's been an awesome process. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's what an exercise in trust and in faith, that 10K especially.
Crazy.
thrown in the
And you were
fire.
there.
Yeah. It was-
Cheering you on the night after.
Yeah, thank you. That was
was
motivating.
so fun.
I was out in the back early, but then I was able to rally, and yeah, you and Bo were super encouraging. So
That was so great.
I really appreciate it. I've seen recently some people ask, because it's kind of become a theme a little bit, believers that they win the Super Bowl or they win some competition and they, say, thank you, God. And I've seen some people, that don't know the Lord, that that don't understand, like, okay, well, when they lose, are they thanking God? Or, is God causing them to lose? Are they thanking God when they are in the dumps or hitting the worst patch of their career or something? How would you, respond to that? Respond to that question. If somebody's like, oh, I see this athlete that says they believe in God, but obviously they're not getting the microphone when they're losing, right?
Yeah.
They only get it when they
For
win.
sure.
How would you answer that question?
I wrestled with that as an athlete as well. I remember for my races, I would have a notebook like you have right now, and I would just write out for every race, what are the goals? What am I going to be focusing on? What's the scripture? And I would write it all down on the front piece of that paper. And then I would leave the back side open for post-race thoughts and post-race praise and all that stuff. And again, when we talk about learning lessons in this space, I looked back at old journals, and I would look at the preview that I would be going into this race with and the goals and the aspirations of these races, and I would flip the page. And it would be full on really good races. Like, thank you, Jesus. That was so awesome. And then I would get to pages where things did not go well, and it would be so minimal, or it wouldn't even be filled out. And so, yeah, I wrestle with it too, of like, Jesus, what are you still doing in this time? And how do I give you praise when it goes really well and when it goes really poorly? And so I think that's a great question to ask. It's something that we have to continuously be committed to, of in the good, we give praise. In the bad, we give praise, because all of it, again, if we truly believe that it all has purpose, then we need to come back to the fact that we have to learn on the bad days what he's teaching us. And also, if he doesn't change, then he's not changing in the bad. And as he wants to come alongside you to cheer and celebrate in the good. And so I think understanding more of his character is important on that road of just being like, well, are they giving praise when things go badly? I think if we have a sobering reality of he is the same, he is who he says he is, and he'll meet us in everything, that we too have to commit ourselves to being like, I'm not just going to fall away because I didn't get what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the desires of our heart, right? It says we have the desires of the heart, but the Lord plans our steps. And so we have these desires for goals in sport, if we're talking about it specifically, goals in sport, and we're like, we want it to go exactly like this.
Yeah.
I want to step on the track. I want it to go like this. I'd love to get this place. And that's what I did on these front entries is I wrote what my goals were. I'm not saying that's bad. I studied sports psych. That is super important to have goals and aspirations. If we don't have flexibility for what the Lord's doing in the in-between, though, we lose what we're supposed to learn. And we lose our trust in him because we are so focused on the fact that we think we know all that has to happen. And we're like, yep, we definitely have all the factors so we can predict the outcome. It's like, no, we don't. We don't know the outcome. And even more if we have the ability to have eyes more open and ears more open to figure out what he's doing in all circumstances, that can be so pivotal to growing closer to him and to grow your relationship with trust in him. So I'm not going to, I wasn't perfect in it. And it was a huge like, hey, Ashley, we need to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely a road that a lot of athletes face.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I think too, it's often a personal experience in that way, and recognizing, and yeah, I guess just referencing earlier, and a big part of my own story is just thinking that I could do it on my own, or we think we have all the answers, and it's just we both believe that that's not the case at all. Switching gears just a little bit, what advice would you give, or maybe a couple of bullet points, as an accomplished female runner? I guess, what do you see as some of like the biggest pitfalls in distance running today, for the female runner?
I think for the female runner coming into the collegiate space, I think really important things to consider as sustainable practices is one, getting on an important meal plan that is sustainable for what you're doing. And we need to be in tune with that both in the physical and the mental aspect of it. It's such a demanding sport, both physically and mentally, that it's really important to have resources that both cover the mental aspect and the toll that it takes. And on the physical aspect of things, the requirement of food and fuel and proper nutrition that this sport takes. And so I would love to see there be more of an emphasis on practices that are sustainable for the long term. For female athletes, I would love to see a change in not just giving up something in your life for the time period of the NCAA career that you're going to be struggling with for the rest of your life. And let me not be abstract here. I think that women need to be feeling more than they are, and to have someone that you trust and have someone that is an advocate for you in the space of coming up with a proper meal plan that's going to be enough carbs, enough protein, and enough intake in general for the training that you're doing is super, super important. I also mentioned on the mental aspect of things, I think sports psych, clinical counseling is an incredible facet of being not only successful, but just learning more about yourself in this space and having an understanding of who you are, and just being really locked in mentally is what I found was great. I worked with a sports psych. I've worked with a clinical counselor. I worked with a nutritionist to make sure that the training that I was doing was also being benefited by the fuel that I was taking in. And so I would encourage female athletes to do that. For my own collegiate career, one thing that's helped me be successful is coming around other female athletes and encouraging each other to grow and to be a good friend, honestly. I've had friends in the collegiate space that have taught me things that I would have never learned if I wasn't on a run with them. And those friendships went way beyond running. And so it can be a very isolating sport, especially when you're wanting to be really good and thinking that it takes isolation to be really good. And so allowing yourself to be a friend, allowing yourself to be loved by good friends in a community, girls advocating for each other. I think that's really important. And just finding a good friend on the team that you can pour into and vice versa. That's changed a lot of the trajectory of my career. It was so cool. I feel like I had one friend, at least like one really good friend every year of my collegiate career, which is so cool because I'm a twin. So I felt like I operated in that space of just being like, I literally felt connected on the hip from a teammate of mine every year that I had, and the Lord was gracious to do that. So that changed a lot for me because I knew someone was cheering me on and I knew people were advocating for me, even on my team. Like just training partners in general. So I think those are two key points. I would be remiss though if I didn't mention the fact that if considering spirituality is a huge aspect that I know brings life and brings purpose and depth of purpose. And so broad stroke of men and females, like to understand your intense or your deeper purpose of beyond athletics is so important to be able to find freedom in your sport or high performance or whatever you're doing. And for me, that was Jesus. And I pray for others that it's Jesus. And because I found breakthrough and found freedom, and it allowed me to run, I believe, for more of who I am. And I was able to see myself beyond what I just gave to a company or to a school or to anyone that was submitting anything as far as like a time goes. So I feel like those are the 2 or 3 things that I would mention.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, nothing to add there. That's truly so good. And I feel like that can be replicated on the male side too. I think sometimes, especially on the eating side, which I know I talked about with Drew extensively, but certainly something that's not addressed enough. But absolutely with you in the spiritual anchoring in the community. Also, speaking about, I guess, community broadly, wanted to ask about your social media presence because you have quite a robust following, and you've worked with a fair amount of brands. You had an NIL deal with On. How did all of that come about? Was social media something that you were trying to lean into, or did you just kind of naturally gain followers because of your connections or your notoriety in the running community? And how do you kind of see social media and your brand partnerships now?
Social media was something that I got into actually later in my life. Like I got it later high school, and I have always just posted really naturally. Like I've never felt a huge calling to content create just to content create. I have a huge desire though to share my experience of my life. And for me, that's sharing the experience of running, sharing the experience as an amputee, and then sharing things that I love, like my family and cooking and people, like brand sponsorships that I really appreciate that have come alongside me during my collegiate career and post. And so it was a very natural process for me. I love connecting with people. So maybe it did come from connections to build you said like robust community. I'm really grateful for it. Like it's connected me with really awesome people that are doing amazing things, and not just doing amazing things, but are amazing people. And for that, I'm really grateful. Like I just think the Lord has just allowed that to grow in a time where people are wanting vulnerability and people that are wanting like real stories. And I have to ask myself, like, what am I willing to share on social media? Because it is a lot of personal things. However, I've seen people gain hope from the fact that I'm able to share. And for me, that makes it worth it. And so I love sharing like how I adapt. And for amputees, I love sharing about my experience in the NCAA for people that are in the NCAA. I love sharing things about community for people that want to build community. It's like all those things that come very natural to me. And then to come along brand sponsorships like On, that has been an incredible process for me. We met at cross country nationals my senior year. And we signed that next year, just a couple months later, and started a couple year contract together.
So cool.
And it was just cool. Like the brand itself has always been so supportive of the fact that I am an adaptive athlete, but I'm competing in able-bodied fields. And they're like, if you want to compete in para, amazing. If you don't want to compete in para, that's also amazing. And I haven't felt the pull to compete in para. I didn't feel it in college, and they were supportive of that. And so that was an amazing sponsorship, as well as like sharing some other things. Morton, when you talk about fueling, that was an awesome aspect to learn more about fueling in my own life, and then to be able to apply it to training and so on and so forth. So
Yeah. Well, I love that. And yeah, it's really cool to see how you carry yourself in the social media space, because there are a lot of people that are only sharing the highlights and are only talking about the good things going on in their life. And it's super encouraging and I believe important how you navigate that space. And yeah, I fully believe that the Lord is using that to reach other people, to encourage other people. And I know he's done the same for my life with injuries or other things that I've gone through. I've had so many people reach out to me about those things. And as you mentioned earlier, it's so much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And in running is and can be very isolating, very, I guess like scary in a way, because a lot of people are basing their worth off of their time and their place and the teams they make. And it's so much more than that, for sure. And so that is really cool. I think we can kind of transition. We've been going for a while, so I really appreciate all the questions. I feel like we could dive into so many different places, but a fun question: where did Bad Ash come from?
that is a great question. Yeah, I think that's important to clarify from the
beginning. We've
kept
the listeners waiting.
Yeah, exactly. So what Austen was referring to in the beginning is a nickname that came about actually during my soccer years. I was just like a maniac on the soccer field, honestly. Like, it wasn't even skill a lot of the time. It was just, I knew that I could run a lot and I could get to the ball. And so I would. And I just I remember I had a tryout, and this was just the funniest story, but I remember I had a tryout and we had just moved to Colorado. Me and my sister were both trying out for the same team. And the coach was like, we can take your sister, but Ashley, we just don't know about. And my dad looks at me and he's like, Ashley, you got to stop running like a chicken with your head cut off out there. Like, you need some direction. And so back to the nickname, I could be anywhere and stuff. And one of the dads just one moment was like, oh my gosh, you're such a badass. And he's like, no, you're like badass. And so the name stuck with family members, friends. My mom was like, you got to see if you can get a vanity plate like that. And I was like, I just don't know. That's kind of out there. And so we applied for it, and it was actually a vanity plate that hasn't been used in Colorado. So
incredible.
You now know where I am at all times in the Boulder area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drove up right behind you on the way up here, and I'm like, yep, that is Ashley for sure. And it works great with the Bronco. You're a Bronco, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works great with the Bronco too. So no, that is super cool. So for you, what's next? Mm-hmm. So you finished, you had this illustrious long 6-year NCAA career, and running was a massive piece of that. You're here in Colorado still, and kind of what are you thinking about, dreaming about, pursuing?
Yeah. So I finished the collegiate career a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, which feels crazy. Like, so much has happened, honestly, since I ended my career. I have taken the liberties to really just think about something that's not directly waking up and thinking about training for a little bit. I needed it for my mind and my heart and my body. And it's been an incredible process for me to be able to be around friends and family, to go travel and see them, and to take time to I was just in Honduras serving, and that for me is just like a commitment to the fact that I didn't have the bandwidth to do that in 6 years, because you're training even in the summertime. And so when you're going to serve, you don't really want to be like, well, where can I run? And so having the opportunity to do that this summer was life-changing in so many ways, to be around new communities and have a little bit more bandwidth to say yes to things that you can't say yes to. I know that I've vocalized it like that before, but so that's been the last 2 months, and dreaming and envisioning for the future. I think as far as running goes and training, I'm really just praying into what the Lord wants for that in my life. And if he's calling me back to that, I think he has me in a really cool space right now where I want to utilize my experiences and utilize like the things that I've been through to help others. And I'm so going to plug this because why not?
Yeah.
It's coming out in about a month and a half. I'm really excited about this. I am starting a podcast, so everyone tune in.
Yeah.
I'm so
Set your
excited.
calendars.
It's called Glory to Glory Podcast, and it's going to be about athletes of multiple sports. Like I want to bring the athletic just the athletic scene together in real conversations. I want to talk about things that are life-changing in sports and how sports are such a vessel for learning for so many things. I want to talk about faith. I want to talk about family and love. I want to talk about the things you wrestle with that we're talking about in sport and in faith. And I want to bring the community together of people that love Jesus and love sports. And for me, that has been the visioning and the dreaming for this current season of my life. So I'm really excited. Everyone tune in.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars. Let's go. That's going to be amazing. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for your time. This was super cool. And I know that the audience is going to be, I dropped the pen. The audience is going to be, just so blessed by your wisdom and by your character. And, just really excited for the podcast, for everything that you have going on in your life, and grateful to be your friend.
Oh, thanks, Austen. Grateful to be your friend too.
Let's go.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, HAX Nation.